the end of my last video, I said this about exo-zombies.
Outbreaks have the potential for exo-zombies to be pretty fun, but first, we have to get through the next map.
And to be honest, that wasn't really a fair assessment on my part, since I hadn't played Infection in over a decade. Back then, I remember a lot of people hating this map, and I agreed with them. Even now, looking at Tierlist, Infection almost always lands near the bottom. But what if I told you we were playing the map wrong? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not about to say this is some hidden masterpiece. It has its flaws, a lot of them. But after going back and playing it again, I don't think it's as bad as we all remember, and I found myself not being as annoyed as I thought I would. So let's dive deeper and take a closer look at what Infection has to offer. Infection is a small map with 4 main locations plus the spawn area. In fact, from spawn, you can actually see the 3 biggest areas right away. You've got Atlas Command and Value Voltage, both of which connect directly to spawn. These are fairly open areas, making them decent spots to train. Both of these areas lead into the sewers, which is where things get a lot tighter. It's a cramped section that can be a bit confusing to navigate at first. There's barely any room to move, and using your exosuit effectively is nearly impossible. It's one of those places you don't want to stay in for too long, where if you get stuck down there, you'll be fighting for your life just to escape. From the sewers, you'll reach Burger Town, the most open area of the map, and of course, Bubby.
We can't wait to put our meat inside you.
Honestly, none of these areas really stand out much besides the sewers. Atlas Command is just a small military outpost with a couple of buildings. Value Voltage is a simple gas station and convenience store, and Burger Town is a destroyed fast food restaurant. The sewers is easily the most interesting part of the map. Unlike the other areas, which are lit by an open sunset sky, the sewers are dark and cramped and covered in graffiti. I do like the small detail of the graffiti guiding you toward Burger Town, but I do wish they had used the graffiti in Spawn to guide players to the exosuits as well. Even though it only takes 2 doors to reach them, having graffiti lines leading the way would have been a nice touch. Older zombie maps gave us clear directions to the power switch, and even in Outbreak, there were signs pointing to the exosuits. Using graffiti to relay that information here would have fit the map style perfectly, and made navigation just a little smoother. When it comes to gameplay, Infection is a difficult map, but it's not really due to the map's design, but more due to the extra additions that feel like they were designed to mess with you. From the new zombie types to the special rounds that completely throw off your game plan. The 3 main areas are all solid for training. Burger Town might be the most open, but it's also the most isolated. If you're not using fast travel, getting back to the rest of the map means trudging through the sewers. Atlas Command is the smallest of the 3 and lacks a weapon upgrade station, so if you need more ammo, you'll have to leave the area. Then there's the sewers, easily the worst place to be. Technically, it connects to all 3 main areas, but to reach them, you have to fight through tight hallways, and the lack of a training area makes it pretty dangerous. Value Voltage is by far the best area. It's got a large open space like Burger Town for training, a fast travel point, and a weapon upgrade station, though it is in a pretty risky spot. One odd thing about exo-zombies, and something I've always found a little annoying, is that there's no indicator for where the mystery box is. If it moves, you have to manually check every location to find it. This might be why, at the start of every match, the box always spawns an Atlas Command, making it the better door to buy off spawn if you want good guns early. I feel like this kinda hurts the initial flow of the map. If the box could spawn in either Atlas Command or Value Voltage, your setup route would change depending on the game. But because it always starts in Atlas Command, you're basically forced into the same early game strategy, unless you don't care about hitting the box. Speaking of the box, Infection's wonder weapon, the Magnetron, is either the easiest thing to get or the rarest with no in between. I either pull it within 2 or 3 spins, or I'll go the entire game without seeing it. One time, I made it to round 30, constantly hitting the box, and still never got it. And honestly, it's not even worth it. It's a percentage-based weapon like the EM1, but has a cooldown on it if you let it overheat. It slows down zombies and eventually kills them like the Paralyzer from Buried, but without the infinite ammo. Really? The only good thing about it is that it's probably the best weapon during insta-kills, but then again, everything becomes good. I don't think even upgrading it helps its damage. It seems to always take the same amount of time to kill a zombie, but you do eventually get a heatsink attachment, which will let it cool down faster. But overall, it's just not very good at either killing or as a utility tool, since the zombies will always outnumber how long it can last for. Besides the weak wonder weapon, a big part of Infection's difficulty comes from its zombie types and how rounds are structured. There are 3 new zombie types appearing as early as round 4, Armored, Spiked, and Acid zombies. Armored zombies have more health, and you can knock off their helmets for increased headshot damage. They're not too bad overall, but can be more annoying in the earlier rounds. Spikers, if shot in the body, shoot out spikes damaging players and other zombies. And Acid zombies leave acid pools that hurt when stepped in, meaning you have to kill them quickly to avoid a buildup. In a vacuum, None of these enemies are a huge deal, but the problem is how they synergize with EMP zombies. If you're low on health and suddenly have to avoid acid puddles or be careful where you shoot, getting EMP'd at the wrong time can be deadly. Another change is that dog rounds have been removed. Instead, dogs start spawning alongside zombies from round 5. In Outbreak, they weren't much of a threat since they had their own dedicated rounds, but here, they're way more dangerous. They're fast, unpredictable, and can spawn as EMP variants, making them even more annoying when grouped with everything else. Technically, Infection has one more unique zombie type, the Goliath boss zombie. He's an interesting mix between the Panzer and Brutus, where it's a zombie inside a Goliath suit, wielding a riot shield and a stop sign. He's got a solid chunk of health and can disable your exosuit with an EMP slam or missile, meaning you'll be losing your mobility a lot whenever he's around. Thankfully, when he first spawns, no other zombies appear for about 30 seconds, giving you a brief one-on-one fight. His EMP slam also leaves him vulnerable for a moment, so you do get some openings to deal damage. The real challenge starts when zombies begin spawning in. Losing your exosuit in the middle of a horde can be very dangerous. At least when he dies, he drops a max ammo, and since he only appears about every 10 rounds, you won't have to deal with him too much. But then there are the other special rounds, and this is where things get frustrating. In addition to the infected rounds from Outbreak, Infection throws in Toxic Zone rounds and Survivor rounds, both of which can be even worse than the Goliath. Toxic Zones appear every few rounds, blocking off certain areas and infecting you if you stay in them too long. On paper, it's an interesting gameplay mechanic and forces you to move around. The problem is that later in the game, all 3 main areas can get locked down at once, forcing you into the sewers. And as I've said before, the sewers are the last place you want to be. Getting trapped down there for an entire round is basically asking you to die. Then there's the Survivor rounds. Near the end of a normal round, you'll get a warning that a survivor needs to be rescued, giving you time to prepare. When this happens, you have to escort them to an evac zone while fending off zombies. If they take too much damage, they stop moving until you clear the area. Failing to save them triggers a power drain for about a minute, shutting down everything: wall buys, traps, weapon upgrades, and forcing you to manually turn on all the power generators. In theory, the penalty isn't the worst thing ever, but the issue is that you'll likely burn through a ton of ammo trying to save the survivor, and if you fail, all that effort was for nothing. You might even have to wait for the power to come back just to buy ammo and keep playing properly. Completing the objective does give you a free weapon upgrade, but since Exozombies' upgrade system isn't that impactful, it doesn't really feel worth the effort. At least survivors have enough help that you can afford to make some mistakes. I mean, just look at this gameplay. I wasted so much time and somehow I still managed to save him. So while past maps might have 1 or 2 types of special rounds, Infection has 4, the most we've seen so far. And the issue isn't just the number of them. If they were spaced out properly, it wouldn't be too bad, but this map spams them constantly. For example, in one playthrough to round 30, I counted 15 normal rounds and 15 special rounds. That means 50% of the game was just dealing with objectives instead of playing normally. And within those 15 special rounds, there were 5 survivor rounds, 3 infected rounds, 6 toxic rounds, and 2 boss rounds. If you're quick with math, you'll notice that adds up to 16. And that's because at one point, I got hit with a double whammy of an infected round and a toxic zone at the same time. And it gets worse. 5 times during this run, I only got a single normal round before another special round kicked in. 6 times, I had back-to-back special rounds, and twice, I had 3 in a row. The sheer amount of special rounds just grinds you down. It's a constant cycle of interruptions, making it feel like you're spending more time dealing with objectives than actually surviving. With that said, I found something that completely changed how I played, and that was the traps. The traps in this map actually solved a lot of its problems for me. Each main area has a unique one. The spawn room has an electric floor trap, Atlas Command features a sniper tower, Burger Town gives you an orbital strike which rains down lasers from the sky, Value Voltage has an ambulance trap, which works like a monkey bomb, distracting zombies for a brief time, and the sewers has 2 traps, one of the coolest looking traps with the Instigator, which sadly isn't very good since it only kills 1 zombie at a time, and the camouflage trap, which hides you from zombies. Almost all of these are extremely useful, especially during the survivor rounds for thinning the horde. Take the Goliath for example. Once zombies start spawning in, you can use the ambulance trap to clear them out and reset the fight to a one-on-one, as well as using it during survivor rounds gives the survivor extra time to gain distance. Even better, the camouflage trap hides them entirely, making it way easier to get them into and out of Burger Town. I honestly think Sledgehammer designed this map with the traps in mind. They all cost 500 points, making them ridiculously cheap. Once I figured this out, I barely struggled with the special rounds. Between traps and score streaks, Survivor and Goliath rounds became much easier, The only real issue that remains is the toxic zones in later rounds, because no matter what, the sewers are still the worst place to be. I think there was a huge missed opportunity to add Bubby as a trap though. He could have worked like the Silver Protector from Shadows of Evil, an AI controlled ally that helps take down zombies. Technically, he does assist you if you complete the Easter egg, but after that, he just explodes and is gone for good.
I might just survive this yet.
Burger Town is already the centerpiece of the map. Having Bubby as a reusable trap would have made the map more memorable. There are also a lot of changes I'd make to improve infection. One of my biggest issues is how the weapon upgrade locations are spread out. For starters, Atlas Command and the sewers desperately need these stations. Atlas Command is already the weakest of the 3 main training spots. Not having easy access to ammo just makes it worse. As for the sewers, it's already the worst place to be, and being trapped down there without a way to restock just makes things even harder than it needs to be. If all 4 main areas had an upgrade station, it would at least make the service areas more viable for 4-player matches. I would also change the reward for the survivor rounds. Give the upgrade to both of your weapons and have the warbird either give you a score streak or a power-up drop. With the amount of effort you'll go through, I think it would be a nice reward to either regain a streak that you've lost, and upgrading both weapons is basically a max ammo with the added bonus of increasing your damage output. The other big issue is how often the bonus rounds appear. Having 50% of your game taken up by these rounds takes away from the core experience of Call of Duty Zombies and makes the map feel more like a constant checklist of objectives instead of just surviving. Spreading them out more would have gone a long way in making the gameplay feel less exhausting. With that said, I think this might have been exactly what Sledgehammer was going for. Infection feels like an attempt to shift zombies from a traditional round-based survival mode into something more objective-focused, keeping you occupied with constant challenges instead of just fighting to stay alive. In a way, it's like a simpler version of Cold War's Outbreak mode, or the SAM trials in Black Ops 6. While I don't think this was the best approach, and it definitely turned a lot of people off, I still found myself having fun with this map. Coming back to it, I didn't hate it nearly as much as I expected to. So, is Infection a great map? No. It can be annoying at times and plays differently than previous maps. But is it as bad as people say? I don't think so. Thanks for watching.